You'll never be her real dad, Ethan. Stop pretending. My wife said it while passing mashed potatoes across the dinner table like she'd commented on the weather. Lily froze beside her glass of lemonade. Her fork scraped the plate once. Then silence sealed the room shut. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of school pickups, emergency room visits, science projects, braces, dance recitals, late-night fevers, parent-teacher conferences, and signed permission slips collapsed into one sentence sharp enough to split bone from memory. I stood there holding a casserole dish that suddenly felt heavier than the HVAC compressors I hauled every summer across half of Dallas County. Melissa kept eating. Calm. Composed. Surgical. That scared me more than anger would have. Her eyes never even lifted toward mine, like she'd rehearsed the line long before tonight. Lily stared down at her plate, shoulders tight, cheeks burning red. 14 years old, and already learning how adults bury each other alive with polished voices. I set the casserole down carefully beside the butter rolls. My hand stayed steady. Years in mechanical repair train a man to control pressure before systems burst. That's a hell of a thing to say, I told her quietly. Melissa dabbed her mouth with a napkin. Ryan's back in Lily's life now. She deserves clarity. There it was. Ryan Cole, the biological father. The ghost who vanished before Lily learned multiplication tables. The same guy who skipped birthdays, ignored child support hearings, and bounced across 3 states chasing startup money and gym memberships. 6 months ago, Melissa used to call him irresponsible. 2 months ago, she started calling him misunderstood. Last week, she changed Lily's emergency contact forms at school. I know because the district portal sent an automatic verification alert to my phone during a service call in Plano. I remember standing beside a rooftop condenser unit reading the update while hot air blasted across my face. Ryan Cole added as authorized guardian. My stomach tightened then. Tonight, I finally understood why. Melissa folded her hands together like she was presenting evidence in court. You built routines, Ethan. I appreciate that. But biology matters. Built routines. Funny phrase. Like I assembled 10 years of fatherhood from IKEA instructions and utility bills. I looked toward Lily. She kept pushing peas around her plate in tiny circles. Kids always know when a room turns dangerous. Did Ryan tell you to say this? I asked. Melissa's jaw flexed for half a second. Tiny movement. Easy to miss unless you've spent years studying failing systems before total collapse. Ryan wants a relationship with his daughter, she replied. And honestly, you've blurred lines for years. Her daughter. Not our daughter. Her daughter. Another word choice carefully selected. My chest tightened harder this time. Last month, Melissa opened a separate checking account. She claimed she wanted better budgeting tools. 3 weeks later, our joint savings transferred $12,000 into an investment group I'd never heard of. Yesterday, a certified letter arrived from a downtown family law office while I was replacing ductwork in Richardson. Melissa grabbed the envelope before I could read the sender. Tonight suddenly connected every loose wire. Every password change. Every locked phone screen. Every conversation that stopped when I entered the room. Lily finally looked up at me then. Her eyes shimmered with panic. And before either of us spoke, Melissa reached into her purse, pulled out a folded document, and slid it slowly across the dinner table toward me. The paper stopped halfway between us. Melissa rested 2 fingers on the top edge like she wanted control over the moment even after releasing it. I looked down. Temporary guardianship amendment. Ryan Cole's name appeared beside Lily's in clean black ink under a draft request prepared by Morrison and Vale Family Law. My chest tightened harder with every line. Educational authority adjustment. Medical consultation rights. Emergency custody review recommendation. Melissa already moved pieces across the board before tonight started. She planned this carefully. That explained the sudden account transfers, the private calls on the back patio, the credit inquiry alerts that hit my phone last Thursday at 6:14 in the morning while I serviced a furnace unit in Frisco. At the time, I figured identity theft. Standing there now, I realized my wife had started building a legal file against me inside my own house. You hired an attorney, I said quietly. Melissa lifted her wine glass. Consulted one. 3 consultations in 2 months. Her expression shifted for the first time all evening. Tiny crack. Tiny pause. Enough. HVAC work teaches pattern recognition. Airflow tells stories before systems fail. People do too. You check my email? She asked. Joint tax account, I replied. Your calendar synced through the family iPad. Her jaw tightened again. Across the table, Lily looked between us like a kid trapped inside somebody else's divorce. That hurt worse than Melissa's words. 4 years old. That was Lily when I first met her. Tiny backpack bigger than her shoulders. Light-up sneakers. Curly blonde hair tied crooked because Melissa rushed through everything back then. Ryan disappeared 3 months after Lily's birth according to the story I got fed. Addiction issues. Commitment issues. Financial issues. Pick a disaster. Melissa used different versions depending on the audience. I never cared much about the details because Lily needed stability more than explanations. So I built routines. Saturday pancakes. Homework checklists taped beside the refrigerator. Savings account contributions every payday. Dance tuition autopay set through my Chase account every August. Soccer registrations every spring. I still remembered the first night she called me dad. She was 6. Fever hit 103 after midnight. She clung to my shirt in the emergency room and whispered, "Dad, do not leave." Melissa cried afterward in the parking garage and told me I saved her life too. Funny how memory works. People rewrite history once better options walk back through the front door wearing a Rolex and driving a black Escalade. Melissa folded her arms. Ryan wants to repair things before Lily starts high school. Repair. I leaned back slowly. He skipped 10 years. People change. Money changes faster. That landed. Her eyes sharpened instantly. There it was again. Another crack in the mask. Ryan sold a software startup 8 months ago. According to the business articles Melissa suddenly started reading every night. I knew because our YouTube algorithm shifted from cooking videos and home renovations to venture capital interviews and luxury real estate tours. Little things expose people when they start fantasizing about escape routes. Lily finally spoke, barely above a whisper. Mom. Melissa cut her off immediately. Adults are talking. Wrong move. I saw Lily flinch. Tiny movement. Tiny betrayal. Same expression kids wear when trust slips for the first time. Melissa grabbed the paperwork back toward her side of the table. Ryan wants dinner with Lily tomorrow night. Private dinner. He already made reservations. I stared at her for a second, then at the document again. One detail finally clicked into place. Morrison and Vale only handled custody restructuring after formal filings entered the county system, which meant my wife had already filed something before tonight. And judging from the date stamped across the bottom corner, she filed it 9 days ago. I slept 3 hours that night, maybe less. Around 4:30 in the morning, I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop open and 23 tabs spread across the screen like evidence in a fraud investigation. Morrison and Vale family law. Texas custody modification procedures. Financial disclosure timelines. Temporary conservatorship filings. Every click tightened something inside my chest. Melissa filed through Denton County. Case number active. Hearing request pending. She moved faster than I expected. Faster than a woman acting on emotion. This carried planning behind it. Structure. Coaching. I logged into our joint bank portal next. 3 transfers jumped out immediately. $12,000 into a newly opened brokerage account under Melissa's name. $8,000 withdrawn through certified checks over 6 weeks. Another $3,500 routed toward a consulting retainer tied to Morrison and Vale. I leaned back slowly and rubbed my jaw. Melissa started preparing an exit strategy months ago while kissing me goodbye every morning beside the coffee maker. That realization sat heavier than anger. Betrayal always sounds explosive in movies. Real betrayal moves quietly. It organizes paperwork. It updates passwords. It studies state statutes while pretending to scroll recipes on the couch. At 6:15, my phone buzzed with a service dispatch request from the HVAC company. Commercial rooftop repair. Medical Plaza in Addison. Normally, I would have grabbed my tool bag and headed straight out. Instead, I opened the employee portal and burned 3 vacation days without explanation. Then I called someone I had not spoken to in almost 7 years. Greg Holloway, family attorney, former customer, divorced twice, smart enough to survive both. He answered on the second ring, sounding half asleep. Ethan, I need a lawyer. Silence hit the line for 1 second. Then his voice sharpened instantly. How bad? I stared at the county filing on my screen. She already filed before telling me. Greg exhaled slowly. Get every financial record you can before she locks you out. Tax returns. school records, medical records, anything proving active parenting involvement. And Ethan? Yeah. Do not leave the house. That part surprised me. I figured space might help. Space helps the filing spouse, Greg replied. Courts read physical absence as emotional disengagement. I wrote every word down inside a yellow legal pad beside my coffee mug. Carefully. Preparation, I answered. Her eyes narrowed immediately. For what? You tell me. You filed first. That landed harder than I expected. She froze beside the refrigerator for half a breath before recovering. You looked into the case? Public records. She crossed her arms. Ryan warned me you would react like this. There it was again. Ryan. Always Ryan now. His opinions already lived inside my marriage like a third person sitting at the table. Melissa grabbed a bottle of water and twisted the cap sharply. He thinks Lily needs stability before high school. I almost laughed at that. Stability from a man who vanished for a decade. But then Melissa said something that stopped me cold. Ryan already hired an educational consultant for Lily's transfer. I looked up slowly. Transfer. Melissa held my stare for the first time since dinner. Austin. Ryan wants us closer to him after the custody hearing. The word Austin stayed lodged in my head the entire afternoon, like metal caught inside a compressor fan. Melissa moved around the kitchen afterward, acting like she had announced a schedule change instead of dismantling a decade of somebody's life. I watched her through the reflection on my laptop screen while pretending to review HVAC maintenance invoices. She texted constantly now. Fast thumbs. Short bursts. Tiny smiles she tried hiding behind coffee cups. People reveal themselves in fragments before the full collapse comes. Around noon my phone buzzed with a calendar notification tied to the family account. Dinner reservation. Sienna Grill. Party of 3. 6:30 tonight. Ryan already stepped into the role before any judge signed paperwork. That part burned deeper than the legal filing. I spent the next 2 hours building timelines for Greg. School registrations. Insurance records. Medical authorizations. Every date mattered now. Family court runs on patterns. Presents. Documentation. Receipts carry more weight than emotion. I exported 14 years of bank statements into organized folders and highlighted recurring expenses tied directly to Lily. Dance uniforms. Summer camps. Braces. Tutoring sessions. Prescription copays. Melissa handled. Appearances. I handled infrastructure. Funny how invisible that becomes until attorneys start counting. At 3:20 Greg called back. I reviewed the filing summary. His tone tightened immediately. She requested primary conservatorship. I closed my eyes slowly. Based on what? Emotional confusion surrounding parental identity. That phrase almost made me laugh. Clean legal language covering something ugly underneath. Greg continued. Ryan submitted a declaration claiming renewed paternal involvement. Melissa backed it with statements about developmental clarity entering adolescence. Developmental clarity. Another polished phrase. Same knife. Can they actually move Lily? I asked. Papers shifted on his end. Judges care about stability. Your advantage sits in continuity. Same school. Same home. Same caregiver history. But Ethan, he paused carefully. Melissa already built a narrative before you even knew a fight started. After the call ended, I drove towards Sienna Grill 15 minutes before the reservation. I parked across the street beside a pharmacy lot and stayed inside my truck with the engine off. Part of me hated doing it. The other part finally understood the game. Ryan arrived first. Black Escalade. Tailored navy jacket. Expensive watch catching sunlight every time he moved his wrist. The kind of man who practiced confidence in mirrors. Melissa arrived 10 minutes later with Lily beside her. My chest tightened when I saw Lily's expression. Arms folded. Shoulders stiff. Teenagers hide pain badly. Ryan stepped forward smiling too wide and reached toward her shoulder. Lily leaned slightly away. Tiny movement. Tiny truth. Melissa noticed it too because her smile flickered for half a second. They walked inside together while I stayed parked across the street, gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. I should have left then. Instead, I opened the family location app Melissa forgot to disable on Lily's phone. 23 minutes later, another location ping appeared across my screen. Ryan's condominium tower downtown. My stomach dropped instantly. Dinner was never the final stop. I started the truck immediately. Halfway there, another notification hit my phone. Unknown number. One new voicemail. I pressed play through the truck speakers and froze when I heard Lily's voice shaking through the recording. Dad, Mom says I have to stay here tonight. I reached Ryan's condominium tower in under 15 minutes with Greg's words replaying in my head the entire drive. Stay calm. Stay documented. Stay inside the law. Family court punishes emotional men faster than dishonest ones. I parked across from the entrance and looked up at 30 floors of glass and steel paid for by venture capital money and polished branding. Melissa always hated my work boots sitting near the front door at home. Funny how quickly people trade stability for aesthetics once money enters the picture. My phone still held Lily's voicemail open on the screen. Her voice cracked on the word have. That detail bothered me most. Kids reveal pressure through word choice. I called her back immediately. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. Then Melissa texted me 3 words. Give her space. Space. Another clean little phrase people use while rearranging somebody else's life. I sat there gripping the steering wheel for almost a minute before dialing Greg again. He answered instantly this time. Tell me exactly what happened. I explained everything from the reservation to the voicemail. Greg went silent for a few seconds. Then his tone sharpened hard. Document every contact attempt. Screenshot the voicemail. Save the timestamps. And Ethan? Yeah. If Lily expresses discomfort and Melissa blocks access, judges care about that. I opened my notes app immediately and started building a timeline with exact times, calls, texts, and location pings. Years in HVAC repair taught me one thing above everything else. Systems fail in sequence. Tiny pressure shifts lead to catastrophic collapse later. Courts work similarly. Patterns matter more than dramatic moments. While updating notes, another notification appeared across my phone. Joint credit monitoring alert. New authorized user added to Melissa's American Express account. Ryan Cole. I stared at the screen for a long second. Financial integration already started. Shared. Spending. Shared accounts. Shared strategy. My marriage had entered acquisition mode months ago, while I still thought we were arguing about schedules and parenting styles. Around 8:45, the condominium elevator lobby doors opened, and Melissa stepped outside alone, holding her phone tight against her chest. She spotted my truck immediately. Her expression hardened before she even reached the curb. You followed us? She asked sharply. Lily called me. Melissa folded her arms. She is emotional. She sounded scared. She sounded overwhelmed because you keep forcing this victim narrative. That word hit harder than I expected. Victim narrative. Like 10 years of fatherhood had become some manipulative performance in her head. I stepped out slowly and kept my voice level. Why is my 14-year-old sleeping in a stranger's condo downtown on a school night? Melissa laughed once under her breath. Cold. Controlled. Ryan is her father. Ryan is a biological contributor. Fathers actually raise children. Her jaw tightened instantly. Good. Truth usually lands harder than shouting. Melissa stepped closer, lowering her voice carefully, like she worried security cameras might catch the conversation. You need to accept reality before court humiliates you. Court. Interesting choice again. She already talked like victory belonged to her. What exactly are you telling the judge? I asked. Melissa hesitated for the first time all night. Tiny pause. Tiny fracture. That Lily feels emotionally pressured by you calling yourself her father. I stared at her for a second, trying to process the level of calculation behind that statement. Then another voice cut through the tension from behind the lobby doors. That is not what I said. Melissa spun around immediately. So did I. Lily stood there clutching her backpack against her chest, eyes red, phone shaking in her hand. And beside her, leaning casually against the elevator wall with one arm crossed, Ryan finally looked directly at me and smiled. Ryan looked exactly like the kind of man social media teaches people to trust. Expensive haircut, tailored jacket, relaxed posture polished through years of boardrooms and investor meetings. The smile stayed perfectly measured too. Friendly enough to look harmless. Sharp enough to remind everybody he believed he already won. Lily stood beside him, gripping her backpack straps so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Melissa moved toward her immediately. Honey, let us handle this. Lily stepped back instead. Small movement. Huge shift. Ryan slid one hand into his pocket and studied me carefully like he was evaluating a contractor before signing paperwork. Ethan, he said smoothly, I appreciate everything you did for Lily growing up. That sentence landed uglier than an insult would have. Appreciation. Like I babysat somebody else's child for a decade, while the real owner reclaimed property rights. I kept my eyes on Lily. You ready to go home? Melissa answered before she could speak. She is staying here tonight. Lily's voice cut through instantly. I never agreed to that. Silence hit the sidewalk hard. Melissa blinked once, clearly caught off guard. Ryan's smile tightened at the corners. Tiny crack. Tiny pressure leak. I recognized the look immediately. Same expression customers make right before discovering a repair estimate costs more than expected. Lily, Melissa said carefully. We already discussed this upstairs. You discussed it, Lily replied quietly. You and Ryan. Hearing her call him Ryan instead of Dad changed the entire energy around us. Melissa sensed it too because frustration flashed across her face before she buried it again. Ryan stepped forward slightly, lowering his voice into that fake calm executives use during hostile negotiations. Nobody wants conflict here. Funny, I answered. Custody filings usually create conflict. That one hit. Ryan glanced toward Melissa for half a second before recovering. Good. He knew I had seen more than they expected. Melissa explained the situation, he replied. Lily deserves a stable transition. Stable transition. More legal language. They sounded rehearsed now, like they spent weeks building terminology together before ever speaking to me. My phone buzzed inside my pocket. Greg. I stepped aside and answered immediately while keeping eyes on all three of them. Tell me you recorded tonight, Greg said without greeting. Audio only. Good enough for now. Listen carefully. I pulled emergency docket access through a clerk contact. Something in his tone changed my heartbeat instantly. What happened? Papers shuffled rapidly on his end. Melissa filed an affidavit yesterday claiming emotional dependency concerns and requested temporary supervised transition authority. I stared across the sidewalk at my wife while Greg kept talking. Ryan also petitioned for accelerated parental integration rights. Integration rights. Jesus Christ. They turned my family into corporate merger terminology. Can they actually pull that off? I asked quietly. Only if Lily supports their narrative. I looked toward her immediately. She still stood several feet away from Melissa now. Backpack hanging from one shoulder. Eyes exhausted. Greg lowered his voice. Ethan, teenagers carry weight in these hearings. Judges listen harder once kids reach 14. Another silence settled inside my chest. Bigger this time. He continued. Whatever happens next, stay controlled. One emotional outburst, and their attorney spins you into instability. I ended the call slowly and slid the phone back into my pocket. Ryan watched me carefully now. Less confidence behind the eyes this time. He sensed movement under the surface. Good. Pressure changes systems. Melissa crossed her arms tighter. We need to go upstairs. Lily shook her head immediately. I want to go home. Melissa's expression hardened. Lily. Then Lily reached into her backpack, pulled out her phone with trembling hands, and looked directly at me. Dad? She whispered, voice cracking hard this time. Mom told Ryan to record me crying earlier so they could use it in court. The entire sidewalk went still after Lily said it. Melissa's face drained first. Then anger rushed back twice as hard. Lily, she snapped sharply. That is completely inappropriate. Ryan stepped forward immediately, trying to regain control. Everybody is emotional right now. Wrong move. He sounded like a consultant managing public relations damage instead of a father hearing his daughter cry. Lily hugged her backpack tighter against her chest and looked straight at me again. Mom kept asking me to talk about feeling confused. Ryan recorded everything on his phone upstairs. Melissa pointed toward her instantly. Because the court needs honesty. The court. Lily's voice cracked harder now. You already decided everything before even asking me. That line hit Melissa harder than anything I could have said. I saw it in her eyes. Panic finally pushed through the polished surface. Family court strategy depends on narrative discipline. Kids rarely follow scripts perfectly once emotions enter the room. Greg warned me about that earlier. Real stories break formation under pressure. Ryan tried again. Lily, nobody wants to force you. Then why did you tell Mom I should stop calling Ethan Dad? Silence. Clean. Heavy. Ryan's expression shifted for the first time since I arrived. Tiny hesitation. Tiny failure in composure. I stayed quiet. That mattered more now. Melissa opened her mouth again, but Lily kept going before she could recover control. You both keep acting like Dad is temporary. Hearing her say Dad, while looking directly at me, nearly cracked something inside my chest. 10 years suddenly stood there between all of us like physical weight. Melissa folded her arms tighter. Defensive posture now. Honey, biology matters. Lily shook her head immediately. Then where was biology when I had pneumonia in 3rd grade? Melissa blinked hard. Ryan looked away briefly. Lily's voice kept building momentum. Where was biology during dance competitions? Science fair nights? Every birthday. Her breathing turned uneven, but she kept pushing through anyway. Dad taught me how to ride a bike. Dad stayed awake when I had panic attacks before middle school. Dad came to every school thing, even after working 12-hour shifts. Every sentence tightened the air harder around us. Melissa glanced toward me, then away quickly. Shame started leaking through the cracks now. Real shame. Raw. Unstable. Ryan tried one final pivot. Nobody is taking Ethan out of your life. Lily laughed once under her breath. Bitter. Too old for 14. You literally filed court papers. That one landed like a hammer. Melissa's eyes widened instantly. How do you know about that? Lily stared at her mother for a long second before answering. Because I saw your laptop open last week. Another silence. Bigger this time. Melissa looked toward Ryan immediately, and that tiny reflex exposed everything. Shared planning. Shared secrets. Shared manipulation. Lily wiped her face quickly with her sleeve and stepped closer toward me instead of either of them. Another shift. Another fracture in their strategy. My phone buzzed again inside my pocket. Greg. I answered without taking my eyes off Melissa. You need to listen carefully, he said immediately. Court clerk just updated the file. My stomach tightened. What changed? Papers shuffled rapidly through the phone speaker. The judge assigned a child advocate this morning after reviewing Melissa's emergency motion. I looked toward Lily standing beside me, shaking with exhaustion and anger. Greg lowered his voice. And Ethan, the advocate, already scheduled a private interview with Lily tomorrow morning. The drive home felt different after that. Lily sat in the passenger seat, clutching her backpack against her chest, while her phone stayed face down in her lap the entire time. Melissa called 7 times before we even reached the highway. Lily ignored everyone. Around the 8th call, a text banner flashed across her screen. You embarrassed me tonight. Lily stared at the message for 2 seconds before locking the phone completely. That tiny movement told me more than words could. Kids spend years protecting parents from accountability. Then one moment breaks the illusion permanently. When we pulled into the driveway, Lily finally spoke again. She has been planning this since spring. I looked over slowly. What do you mean? She swallowed hard. Ryan started coming around months ago while you worked overtime. My chest tightened immediately. How long? Since March maybe. March. Same month Melissa suddenly changed passwords on our banking apps. Same month she started talking about fresh starts and personal growth during random dinner conversations. Same month she convinced me to refinance the house because interest rates looked favorable. Jesus Christ. I parked the truck and sat there staring through the windshield while puzzle pieces slammed together inside my head. Refinancing gave Melissa updated asset valuations, separate banking structures, liquid cash access, credit expansion leverage. This whole thing stretched far beyond emotions. Melissa and Ryan built an exit strategy while I still thought marriage counseling could solve our tension. Lily opened her backpack slowly and pulled out a folded yellow notebook paper covered in cramped handwriting. I found this in Mom's office drawer last week. She handed it to me carefully like it carried poison. I unfolded it under the overhead cab light. Bullet points. Structured notes. Establish emotional confusion. Limit dependency language. Encourage biological bonding. Track Ethan reactions. My stomach turned harder with every line. Halfway down the page, another phrase sat circled twice in black ink. Possible relocation by August before school year. Ryan's name appeared beside it. I looked back toward Lily. Did your mom write this? She nodded slowly. Ryan added stuff too. I heard them arguing upstairs about strategy. Strategy? They talked about my relationship with Lily like hostile shareholders planning a takeover. I folded the paper carefully and slid it into the center console beside my legal notes. Evidence changes power. Greg would want originals immediately. Inside the house, Lily headed straight upstairs while I stayed at the kitchen island building digital copies of everything. Scan notes, screenshots, timeline updates, voicemail backups. I uploaded duplicates into encrypted cloud storage and shared access directly with Greg's secure folder link. Years fixing commercial systems taught me redundancy saves entire buildings once failure begins. Around midnight, Greg finally called again, sounding more awake than earlier. I reviewed the affidavit Melissa filed, he said immediately. You need to hear this before tomorrow. I leaned forward slowly. How bad? Papers shifted over the line. Ryan submitted financial declarations offering private school tuition, relocation incentives, expanded housing accommodations, and full educational support. Money. There it was. The real pressure point underneath everything. Greg exhaled sharply before continuing. Melissa framed you as emotionally possessive and financially unstable due to physical labor limitations. I almost laughed hearing that. I worked 60-hour weeks for years keeping that household alive, while Ryan chased startup exits across state lines. Greg lowered his voice. The judge might buy parts of it if Lily folds during the advocate interview tomorrow. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked softly above me. Lily probably pacing. Probably crying quietly into a pillow while two adults treated her childhood like legal territory. I rubbed both hands across my face hard enough to feel the exhaustion settling into my bones. Then Greg said something that stopped me cold. Ethan, there is one more problem. What now? Silence hit for half a second. Melissa filed a motion requesting a psychological evaluation on you this afternoon. The psychological evaluation hearing lasted 14 minutes. 14. That was all the time it took for a stranger in a gray suit to glance through paperwork and decide whether I looked stable enough to remain in my daughter's life. Greg warned me beforehand. Family court rewards composure more than pain. So I sat there in a navy button-down shirt with both hands folded calmly across my lap, while Melissa avoided eye contact beside Ryan at the opposite table. The child advocate arrived halfway through carrying a thin leather folder and a face that gave nothing away. Middle-aged woman. Sharp eyes. Careful posture. The kind of person trained to notice what people try hardest to hide. She spent 45 minutes alone with Lily before stepping into the courtroom. That wait nearly hollowed me out. Melissa whispered constantly with her attorney during those minutes. Ryan kept checking market updates on his phone, like custody hearings fit somewhere between investment calls and lunch reservations. Then the advocate finally spoke. Lily expresses a clear emotional bond with Ethan Walker as her primary parental figure. Melissa's attorney immediately shifted forward. Biological relationships still matter in developmental integration. The advocate barely looked at him. Consistency matters more. That line changed the room instantly. I felt it. Pressure moved. Momentum cracked. The advocate continued reading calmly from her notes. Lily described structured care, emotional reliability, educational involvement, and long-term parental presence provided by Mr. Walker since early childhood. Melissa stared down at the table now. Ryan finally stopped touching his phone. Greg stayed perfectly still beside me except for one tiny nod. Tiny victory. Huge shift. Then came the part that shattered everything they built. Lily also described feeling manipulated into redefining her relationship with Ethan in preparation for legal proceedings. Silence swallowed the courtroom hard after that. Melissa's attorney tried objecting immediately, but the judge raised one hand, without even looking up. I have heard enough. His voice carried the kind of exhaustion that comes from years watching adults weaponize children against each other. He reviewed the filing stack for another minute before speaking again. Temporary relocation denied. Emergency custody modification denied. Current residence and parental structure remain intact pending full review. Melissa closed her eyes briefly, like somebody punched air from her lungs. Ryan leaned back slowly, jaw tight for the first time since entering my life. Money finally met something stronger than strategy. Lily sat beside the advocate, twisting her bracelet around her wrist while trying hard not to cry. I looked at her then and saw the same little girl who once fell asleep against my shoulder during late-night emergency room visits. Same eyes. Same nervous habit with her hands. Some things survive even after betrayal drags a family through court filings and psychological evaluations. Outside the courthouse, Melissa caught up with us near the parking structure elevators. Lily, she said softly, voice shaking now, please talk to me. Lily stopped walking but stayed beside me. That detail mattered more than the words themselves. Melissa looked toward me next. Real guilt finally lived in her face now. Raw, unfiltered. I thought I was helping her, she whispered. I studied her quietly for a few seconds before answering. You tried replacing history with biology because money made the past look inconvenient. Tears filled her eyes immediately after that. Ryan stayed 20 feet away pretending to answer emails while his entire future unraveled in silence. Lily reached for my hand then, 14 years old, and still reaching for me when life turned ugly. My chest tightened so hard I almost lost breath for a second. We walked toward the truck together while courthouse doors closed behind us. Halfway across the parking garage, Lily looked up at me carefully and asked the question that stayed with me long after everything ended. Dad, if you knew all this pain was coming, would you still choose me? I opened the passenger door for her slowly and smiled through the exhaustion settling into my bones. Every single time. Because blood creates relatives. Presence creates fathers. And the people who stay through the hardest years usually matter more than the people who arrive once life becomes comfortable.